Good morning and welcome to episode 4 of Finding My Path, the new series where I am taking an opportunity to share some windows into my world in the hopes that it will help you have a better opportunity to find your path. I'm hoping you can learn from the mistakes that I've made or the plans that I'm making, that giving you an idea of what I'm struggling with may give you a connection, an opportunity to ask questions and maybe better understand what's going on in your world. I've spent most of my life learning lessons the hard way, meaning by myself, having ignored the advice that I was given or having not sought it out through a lot of my earlier life. And while I am trying to get better at that myself and trying to learn lessons from others so that I can suffer a little bit less pain, my hope is to bring that same understanding to you as well and to give you that opportunity to learn a little bit earlier. Today's theme is signal versus noise. How do you sort out the signal from the noise? For those of you who may not have heard that term before, it's become pretty popular over the last few years. But the idea is that the signal is what we want. Think of it like you're driving down the road and you are listening to a radio station and then you get a lot of static. The static, and you tune it to try to get the right station in, or you keep searching to try and get a good signal for a game that you're watching or anything like that. It could also be hey, can you hear me now from cell phones, is trying to find the right signal versus the disruption or the noise. There's so much noise in our world. There's so much noise in the social media and in how we communicate. There's so much noise even from well-intentioned people that doesn't apply to us, that it's important we find the signal and focus upon that, or we can be overwhelmed and lose our way. So today's theme, signal versus noise. The question for you today, go ahead and answer it in the comments. How do you sort the signal from the noise? In your world, how do you make sure that you are hearing the right signal instead of getting caught up and distracted by all the noise? So this morning we'll talk just about a few things, and I want to touch a little bit on some lessons from karate from me this week, from our karate classes. Our teachers there are amazing, and the community is great. So are the lessons that we connect. Some of them are specifically the lessons that are designed to be connected. Some of them are just what we take away. And this week, a couple of them during our sparring week really hit me. Secondly is a good reminder from a networking event that I was at this week that I think really applies to everyone. And third is just a couple of client success stories that I'm pretty excited about, that I'd like to share with you how they work, because I believe they can apply to you as well and help you have a couple of success stories on your own. And then the last thing we'll talk about is really what I've been struggling with this week, which is sorting the signal from the noise, and also sort of paired with that, the idea that we need to turn it off. That especially as entrepreneurs or people who are driven to do a certain thing, it can be very difficult as we go through the rest of our lives to find a way to turn it off. So those are the few topics. Let's touch quickly through them. First of all, this week I mentioned that I had a couple of lessons from karate this week. When we were sparring this week, not only did I gain some additional humility, maybe a little bit more than I would have liked, but I also was reminded or gained a couple of lessons specifically from it. The first was the importance of being able to see yourself accurately. You see, this week during karate, we did something that is painful, but is incredibly good. And it's something that I do when I'm training as well. When I'm training, I tell people that the best way to get better is to do consistent role playing. And everybody grumbles, people will even try to avoid it at all costs. But really then after I say that, I'll pause and I'll say, accept. And the accept is the best way is to do consistent role playing, but record yourself while you are doing it. That is incredibly painful, but is the fastest way to go the furthest. So in looking to do that, what you find is that it is it is so hard to watch because you see things that you didn't want to admit or you weren't aware of. In my case, we were taping the sparring and I had my guard up, and that's great. And then someone came in and attacked, and I would block it. But then I would go to kick, and as it turns out, as I went to kick, I would just drop my guard right from in front of my face. Now, I didn't think I was doing that. I wasn't aware of that because I wasn't seeing it through the right lens, like we talked about the other day, but also just I didn't have the awareness that I needed to. I wasn't in a position where I was ready to admit that. I would challenge each of you to ask how you can see yourself more accurately. Is there something that you can videotape? Is there someone's opinion who you can ask? How do you get that objective view? Because there was really no arguing with it once I saw it. There were a couple of other lessons I learned too, that I was being pretty predictable. I was using only one side. I was being more slow than I liked. A lot more lessons than I would have liked, but also as many lessons as I do like, because I'm glad to get an opportunity to improve and to see where I was missing it. The second that I gained from that sparring session is the importance of not waiting your turn. And this sounds counterintuitive because we're taught throughout our lives the importance of being polite and waiting our turn. And guys, when you're waiting in line and when you're showing courtesy, absolutely wait your turn. This is not me saying to go out and be a bully. Quite the opposite. I get very frustrated when people don't wait their turn when it's appropriate. But more think about it when you're doing something that is competitive. If you're running a race, you don't want to wait your turn to get in front. You want to get in front. If you're sparring, we don't want to wait for the other person to hit us and then hit them. We want to take our turn. And the same thing is true in business and entrepreneurship. When we are starting or running a business, we don't want to wait our turn. We want to make sure we have a good plan. We want to make sure that we understand where we're going and what our principles are. But what we don't want to do is wait our turn in the sense that we just wait and see what everyone else is going to do, and then we decide what to do. We want to be people of action, and we want to move forward and get things done. So that's a couple of things that came up for me this week. Another thing that came up this week, thanks to a good friend of mine, Bill, he called me the other day and he said, "Hey, do you want to go to lunch? There's this event. I don't really know what it is. It's probably a networking opportunity." And it was something that we showed up, and we weren't even quite sure then. We knew a friend that we knew had invited us, but we didn't quite know. We showed up, we went to lunch, and we had an opportunity to connect with a great group of people in the room, learn about a couple of different charities that are of things that are going on, meet people from different businesses, and also share a few minutes about what we do and why we do it. This in turn looks like it may result in connecting with a few potential clients. For me, an opportunity to speak. My friend had an opportunity for some additional business, and also we began building what I believe will be at least a couple of longer term relationships. The idea here, or the point, is that you don't know what things are until an opportunity arises sometimes, and you have to be ready for the opportunity. If I didn't know what I would say given a few minutes, or if I didn't have a message or a purpose or something that I'm aiming at, then I wouldn't have been ready for that opportunity, and I would have completely missed it and not gained the things that were in front of me. That doesn't mean you should go to every event you were invited to. That's not the point. In fact, many times the right answer is no. I think in general, the answer should either be hell yes or no. But when I was called, the answer was kind of a hell yes, because I know Bill and I trust him, and I knew the other gentleman, and I said, hey, whatever they're involved in, it's going to be good. More the point, though, is that we don't know when we're going to have an opportunity, and we should always be ready for it, be prepared for it, and know what we're aiming at and what we're trying to accomplish, so that if we stumble on it, maybe you get in an elevator and you find out that you happen to be in the elevator with the CEO of a company that you've always wanted to work for, and you have 2 minutes just to chat. How are you going to engage with them? What are you going to say? What is your purpose? You don't have to game out every situation, but have an idea and an understanding of where you go, and think, man, if I get an opportunity to share with somebody that matters, here's what I'm going to connect. The third thing from this week in my world is client meetings. I've had a couple of great client meetings and some wonderful successes. I'm getting ready to head to another one in a few minutes, but I've been excited about just a couple of wins that happened in speaking with one of my clients. So this client is someone who is in a creative industry, and they're a great person, super imaginative, super creative, very talented, doing a lot of wonderful things. And after a couple of meetings, we recognized that this person's dream business was a little bit off the beaten path, but truly fulfilled their mission. And we took the bold step to say, hey, instead of following the mainline path in this industry, which is music, we're going to follow an offset of this path that gets you to your dream. And that person then started really stepping out in faith and in confidence, and we made some good plans together. And as a result, they are now taking real steps forward, and in fact bringing in their first money from that only 30 days later. So I'm so excited to be working with a client who was open to figuring out exactly what their dream was and not necessarily making that someone else's dream but theirs, and stepped out and has already just a month later made several $100s doing so. And by the end of the next 2 months, we'll have several $1,000s from having done it. And keep in mind, this is in a creative music industry, so this isn't something that is some mainstream job. Now, the second win for the same client I thought was very exciting, which is we've been talking about pricing and about the importance of creating value and getting what you're worth, of the earning, and not only earning what you're worth, which I think most people are already doing in many ways and providing great value, but asking the right things for it. So when we spoke this week, what happened was she came in, she said, hey, here's what I've been doing, but I'm nervous about the pricing. I'm concerned about not charging right. And so we had a really good conversation about that. And what that conversation led to was two things. One, understanding strategically that a lot of pricing doesn't matter. To give an example, if you're going to charge someone $35 for something or $49 for something, psychologically, it's almost the exact same number. So if you're charging the lower amount, you're only costing yourself. You are not hurting yourself in close rate. You're not hurting yourself in perceived value. You're not hurting yourself in any other way, or you're not hurting them in any other way. You're only hurting yourself from not getting more money. So we made that move, and that move is going to mean a couple $1,000s over the next several months. And that's very exciting to be able to take a strategy that will do that. I would challenge you to really look at your pricing. Are you strategically in the right place? Do you understand the psychological points where it does make a difference and where it doesn't make a difference for someone that you are working with or presenting to? If you're asking to get paid for a gig, is there a spot where you should be asking for more? The rule of thumb is this: if you are confident that you are providing value that is somewhere between 2 and 10 times what you're asking, then you're in good shape. If you are not confident you are providing value or changing lives, then you should look and say, how can we provide more value? What can we do to make it a no-brainer? This isn't about charging less, it's about providing more value. If I offered you $100, if you asked me, if you gave me 30, you would do it every time. So why would we not do that in trading value as well? That's the trade. And I think we don't see it, especially in the creative endeavors. We don't see it that way a lot of times. We take this value and we say, yeah, I provide good value, I make change, but we don't take it and look at it and think of it as an exchange. So if I'm providing value that's worth $100 and I'm only asking you for 30 for it, then I'm probably undervaluing it. But even if I ask you for 50 for it, you're still going to give it to me because you got 100 worth. Think of it in terms of that exchange. Ask yourself what you're doing is really worth, what impact it's really making, what the perceived impact and value is, which is even more important than the real value, is the perceived value. And then set your pricing understanding the psychology based upon that. The last thing today is the things that I've been struggling with this week, I've been struggling a lot with turning it off. I have just many balls in the air right now as we're launching the website and trying to put together the free webinar and writing the copy for the website and working with different clients and doing and recording mastermind sessions, doing all of these things. I have been, in many ways, all work all the time, and I've had a hard time turning it off. I suspect maybe you can relate to that. And turning it off is important. It's the only way that we rest. When you think about it, if for your body, the only way that you heal is to sleep. So if you're sick, you need to sleep. For our mind, the only way we refresh is to turn it off, to not have it on all the time. If you leave it on all the time, focused on the same thing 100% of the time, not only will you disconnect or disregard some important things in your life, like maybe your family or other responsibilities that you have, but you will also not give it a chance to take a break and walk away from it. Some of our best ideas come when we take a break and walk away from something, when we allow ourselves to process in the background instead of in the foreground. So there's an importance in turning it off. And this week, with everything going on, I have really been struggling with that. I would actually love to know from you guys what some of the ways that you find to turn things off are. I'd love any tips that you have. This has been a struggle for me for a long time. And like many entrepreneurs, I've sort of gone to the extremes on either end, where I'll be all on until my body or my mind can't take it anymore, and then I'll be all off. And neither of those is really super healthy. I have done some things to try to balance that out. There are some time management things that I do that help. There are some physical exercise and things like that help a good deal, but I am always open to more tips. And then the other thing that I've been struggling with is sorting the signal out from the noise. The noise is almost overwhelming, especially when you are wide open trying to learn as much as you can. I've been learning a lot about marketing from my marketing team. I've been learning a lot about my continued desire to learn a lot about business from different podcasts and books. I'm learning more about the music industry from a book that I'm reading that I was recommended by one of my clients. I am learning a lot about cars this week because we had some car issues. I have been learning a lot about illness because we've been dealing with some medical issues. There's just a number of things, and there's so much and so many opinions and so many people willing to give their opinion and so many people training this stuff that it's like a wall of signal, or a wall of noise rather. So to find the signal in the middle of that can be pretty challenging. I'll tell you how I'm working through it. And I would love your tips for some ideas. The way I'm working through it is I'm asking myself, I'm making sure that I know where I'm headed. I'm making sure that I know what's important. And anything that I get, let's say somebody suggests a podcast or a book to me, I'm asking myself, first, does this move me closer to my goal or further away? And if it moves me further away, I just say no. Secondly, if it does move me closer, I'm asking, is there anything else that would move me closer faster? And if the answer is yes, then I probably set it aside and say, I put it on a list. Here it is for the future. But right now I need to focus on this other thing because I can only focus on a couple of things at once. And I need to use the things that are the biggest leverage possible to be able to get where I'm going. That's something that's important for me to be able to keep a little bit calm. Another thing is that I do follow, and I mentioned it earlier, a little bit of the mindset, and I'm not as disciplined with this as I would like, but I'm trying to get there. I follow a little bit of the mindset of if I get approached with something, that it's either hell yes, I definitely want to do that, or it's no. It's not these things that are kind of yeses or I'll get to it or maybes. They really no's, and we just don't like to admit it. Or they should be no's, and they eat up our time out of a sense of obligation that we don't necessarily need to feel. So I encourage you to say no more often. I encourage me to say no more often. Those are a couple of ways that I'm doing it. And I suppose the last is that when I look, I'm really trying to make sure that I finish something that I'm doing. I have had a bit of a history of being ADD and bouncing from item to item to item. And in this case, I'm trying to make sure, look, if I start a podcast, I finish that podcast, or if I start a book, that I make sure that I have time scheduled and set aside to be able to work on that, so that I'm making conscious choices. Where we get into danger with all of the noise is when we get reactive. When we're being proactive and we're planning and we're making intentional decisions, it's a lot easier to sort things out and use our filters. But when we get reactive, either because we're tired or we start to feel overwhelmed or we didn't plan our time well or we run into some unexpected issues, those are the danger zones for us. Those are the times when we can have a lot of pain coming our way because we just get overwhelmed. It's like the waves of the storm surge just pouring over us, instead of us being in a spot where we go out into a calm sea and enjoy a swim and learn and get stronger from that. So it really is a matter of picking the calm, being strategic, being proactive, and those are the things that have worked for me. What's working for you guys? What are you struggling with? What are things that are going on in your world? What are some victories you've had? I would absolutely love to engage with you guys and to hear more. And I would love to hear more of what you might like to hear about in some of our other sessions, and what your thoughts are about these. I appreciate you guys greatly for listening, for taking the time to get through. You guys are the reason that I do what I do. And I am so passionate about helping creatives and entrepreneurs win that I want to find any way that I can to be accessible and to do that in a powerful way. I am excited to work with my clients on a day-to-day basis, and I'm excited to hear about what is going on in your world. I'm excited to hear about how you are finding your path. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Keep finding your path, and I'll talk to you soon.